Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the window of her ship, looking out at the massive space station floating before them. The Galactic Council's headquarters was bigger than any city on Earth. It looked like a giant metal flower with 12 petals, each one representing one of the ruling alien races. Lights blinked across its surface like stars, and ships moved around it like tiny insects. Chen had been chosen to represent humanity because she was smart, calm, and spoke 15 different languages. But today, none of her training felt like enough. Today she would meet the beings who controlled most of the galaxy. "Ambassador, they're ready for you," said Captain Morrison from behind her. His voice was tight with worry. Everyone on the ship knew this meeting could decide the future of the human race. Chen nodded and straightened her dark blue uniform. The Earth symbol on her shoulder seemed small compared to the massive alien structure outside. She walked through the ship's corridors, her footsteps echoing in the quiet halls. Her crew watched her go with worried faces. They all knew what this meeting was about. The docking bay of the council station was enormous. Chen's small shuttle looked like a toy next to the alien ships parked there. Some ships were made of what looked like living crystal. Others seemed to be made of liquid metal that moved and flowed. There were ships that looked like they were grown instead of built, with organic curves and surfaces that pulsed with light. An alien guide met Chen at the airlock. It was tall and thin, with silver skin that reflected light like a mirror. Its face had no features that Chen could recognize as eyes, nose, or mouth. Instead, it had patterns of light that moved across its head. "Follow," it said in perfect English, though Chen couldn't see how it was speaking. The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. They walked through corridors that were bigger than subway tunnels. The walls showed pictures of space, but Chen realized these weren't pictures. They were windows showing real views from different parts of the galaxy. She saw star systems being born, planets covered in cities, and space battles from long ago. Other aliens walked through the corridors, but they barely looked at Chen. She saw creatures that looked like giant insects with too many legs. There were beings made of what looked like smoke or gas floating instead of walking. Some aliens were so strange that Chen couldn't figure out which end was their head. The council chamber was the biggest room Chen had ever seen. It was shaped like a bowl, with seats rising up in circles around a central platform. The seats were filled with hundreds of different alien species. Some were huge, filling spaces that could hold 20 humans. Others were tiny, sitting in groups on what looked like small stages. The most important seats belonged to the 12 council races. Chen had studied them before coming here, but seeing them in person was different. The hegemony lords looked like massive ants, but they were the size of elephants. Their mandibles clicked and moved as they watched Chen walk to the center of the room. The veil dancers were almost see-through, like ghosts made of colored light. They floated above their seats, changing colors as they moved. Chen had read that they could become completely invisible when they wanted to. The stone shepherds looked like living mountains. They were made of rock and metal with glowing crystals for eyes. They moved very slowly, and when they spoke, their voices sounded like avalanches. At the highest seat sat Zixithera, the current council speaker. It looked like a giant crystal formation that had learned to walk. Light moved through its body in patterns that hurt Chen's eyes to look at directly. "Human representative," Zixithera said, and its voice filled the entire chamber. "You have been summoned to receive the judgment of the Galactic Council." Chen stood on the small platform in the center of the room. She felt very small, surrounded by hundreds of alien beings, but she kept her back straight and her head high. "The Council has reviewed your species," Zixithera continued. "You have achieved faster than light travel. You have begun to spread beyond your home system. By the laws that have governed this galaxy for 3,000 years, you must now pay the integration tribute." The chamber fell silent. Chen could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching her. She had expected this, but hearing it made her stomach feel heavy. "The tribute for a new species is standard," said another voice. This came from one of the hegemony lords, its mandibles clicking as it spoke. 30% of all resources from your homeworld. 50% of your population for work assignments throughout the galaxy. Complete surrender of all military technology and weapons. Chen's hands clenched into fists at her sides, but she kept her face calm. "Additionally," the hegemony lord continued, "your species will provide soldiers for council military operations. Your brightest individuals will be relocated to serve council research facilities. Your leaders will be replaced by council-approved governors. This is the natural order. added a veiled dancer, its ghostly form shimmering. The strong rule the weak. The advanced guide the primitive. Every species in this galaxy has accepted this truth. Chen looked around the chamber. She saw representatives from hundreds of different worlds and species. Their faces, the ones that had faces, showed no surprise or anger. They all looked like this was normal, expected, just the way things worked. "We have been generous," said a stone shepherd, its voice rumbling like an earthquake. "Many species are simply eliminated when they reach your level of development. We offer you the chance to serve and survive." Zixathera's crystal body flashed with bright light. "You have one rotation of your homeworld to provide your answer. Return here with your species' acceptance of these terms." Chen felt like she was in a bad dream. Everything about this was wrong. The casual way they talked about enslaving humanity, the expectation that Earth would just give up half its people, the assumption that humans would simply accept being ruled by aliens. "I need to contact my government," Chen said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. This seemed to amuse some of the aliens. The hegemony lords clicked their mandibles in what might have been laughter. A few veil dancers changed colors rapidly, which Chen's briefings had said meant they found something funny. "Of course," Zixathera said, and now there was definitely amusement in its voice. "Contact your leaders. Discuss your options. Consider your alternatives. But do not take too long," added the hegemony lord. "The council has other business to attend to. Your answer will be received in one rotation, no more." Chen nodded stiffly. "I understand. Do you?" asked a veil dancer. "Do you truly understand what happens to species that refuse the council's generosity?" The chamber filled with sounds that might have been laughter from a dozen different alien throats. Some clicked, others buzzed, and a few made sounds like breaking glass. Chen looked up at Zixathera. "What happens to them?" The crystal being's light pulsed slowly. "There are no species that have refused human. In 3,000 years, every species has seen the wisdom of acceptance. Some take longer to decide than others, but they all reach the same conclusion in the end." "Why?" Chen asked. "Because the alternative is extinction," Zixathera said simply. "Complete and total extinction. We have the power to turn stars into dust, human. We have weapons that can crack planets like eggs. We command fleets that number in the tens of thousands of ships." The chamber fell silent again. Chen could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. "One rotation," Zixathera repeated. "Return here with your species' submission, and humanity will have a future as servants of the council. Fail to return or return with refusal, and humanity will have no future at all." Chen nodded once more and turned to leave. As she walked back through the enormous chamber, she heard the aliens beginning to talk among themselves. She caught words and phrases in languages her translation device could barely handle, but the meaning was clear. They were already discussing how to divide up Earth's resources and where to send human workers. None of them seemed to consider that humanity might choose a different path. The message from Ambassador Chen reached Earth 18 hours later. President Martinez sat in the underground command center beneath Geneva, reading the transmission for the 4th time. The words seemed to get worse each time she looked at them. Around the long table sat the most important people in human government and military. Admiral Thompson, head of the Colonial Defense Fleet, was studying tactical displays on his tablet. Director Kim from Xenological Studies had spread out files about every alien species humanity had encountered. General Roberts from Earth Defense was drawing diagrams on a notepad, calculating numbers that didn't look good. "Read it again," said President Martinez. Her voice tired. Admiral Thompson cleared his throat. 30% of Earth's resources, 50% of our population for forced labor, complete military surrender, installation of alien governors to rule our worlds. And if we refuse? Asked General Roberts. Complete extinction, Martinez said quietly. They've done this to every species they've encountered for 3,000 years. No exceptions. Director Kim looked up from her files. I've been studying their communication patterns, Madam President. The Council doesn't negotiate. They don't compromise. They see this as the natural order of the universe. The strong rule the weak. How strong are they? Martinez asked Admiral Thompson. Thompson's face was grim. Our best estimates put their combined fleet at over 50,000 ships. We have 237 operational vessels, and most of those are exploration ships with light weapons. The room fell silent. The numbers spoke for themselves. What about our defenses? Martinez asked. General Roberts shook his head. The orbital platforms around Earth and Mars might hold them off for a few hours. Our ground-based weapons can't reach space targets effectively. We're not built for a war like this. Because we never expected to fight one, Admiral Thompson added. Our ships are designed for exploration, not combat. Our weapons are meant to deal with pirates or asteroid mining disputes, not alien invasion fleets. Director Kim pulled out another file. I've been analyzing the Council's history. Every species they've contacted has followed the same pattern. First contact, then the tribute demand, then submission within days or weeks. What about the species that tried to fight? Martinez asked. Kim's face was pale. There's no record of any species trying to fight. The Council's reputation is so complete that everyone surrenders immediately. Foreign Minister Chang, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe the smart choice is to accept their terms and hope we can negotiate better conditions later. Negotiate with whom? Admiral Thompson asked. These aliens see us as barely intelligent animals. You don't negotiate with cattle. But 50% of our population, Chang continued. That's 4 billion people. If we fight and lose, we lose everyone. Martinez stood up and walked to the wall screen showing Earth from space. The planet looked peaceful, blue and white and beautiful. It was hard to imagine alien ships surrounding it, demanding surrender. Dr. Kim, Martinez said without turning around. What do we know about the psychology of the Council species? Kim shuffled through her papers. They're all apex predators from their homeworlds. The hegemony lords evolved from pack hunters. The veil dancers were ambush predators. The stone shepherds dominated their planet through size and strength. And humans? Martinez asked. We're persistence hunters, Kim said. We evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We don't give up. We don't know when to quit. Admiral Thompson looked up from his tablet. That might not be an advantage here, Madam President. Sometimes knowing when to quit is important for survival. Martinez turned back to the group. Show me the exact message Chen sent. Kim pulled up the transmission on the main screen. Chen's face appeared tired and worried. Her voice was steady, but everyone could hear the stress underneath. The Council expects complete submission, Chen said in the recording. They've made it clear that they see this as routine. They're already discussing how to divide our resources and where to send our people for work assignments. The recording paused, and Chen took a deep breath before continuing. But there's something else. They're not expecting any resistance. They've never encountered it before. The entire Council chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, and every single one of them looked like broken prisoners. They've forgotten what it means to fight back. Martinez stopped the recording. Play that last part again. They've forgotten what it means to fight back, Chen's voice repeated. The room was quiet for a long moment. What are you thinking, Madam President? Admiral Thompson asked. Martinez sat back down. I'm thinking about history. About every time in human history when someone with overwhelming power told people to surrender or die. This is different, Chang said. This is alien technology we can't understand, weapons we can't match, numbers we can't compete with. The British Empire said the same thing to colonial Americans, Martinez replied. The Nazis said it to the resistance fighters. Every empire in history has believed their power made them invincible. General Roberts leaned forward. But those were human conflicts. These are aliens with technology thousands of years ahead of ours. Are they? Martinez asked. Dr. Kim, what did Chen observe about their technology? Kim consulted her notes. Their ships are impressive, but they're designed for intimidation and control, not necessarily combat efficiency. Their space station is huge, but also a single vulnerable target. Most importantly, they haven't fought a real war in centuries. They haven't needed to, Admiral Thompson said. Everyone surrenders. Exactly, Martinez said. They've become soft. They expect submission because that's all they've seen. They have no experience with an enemy that fights back. Foreign Minister Chang shook his head. Even if that's true, the cost would be enormous. Billions of lives. The cost of surrender would also be billions of lives, Martinez said quietly. 50% of our population sent to alien worlds as slaves. Our children growing up under alien rulers. Our species becoming servants forever. She stood up again and looked at each person around the table. I want every military commander connected to this meeting. I want our best strategists, our top scientists, Everyone who might have ideas about how to fight an enemy with superior numbers and technology. Madam President, Chang said, are you seriously considering armed resistance? Martinez was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at the screen showing Chen's worried face frozen in the middle of her transmission. I'm considering what it means to be human, she said. Every species in that council chamber gave up when faced with overwhelming odds. They accepted slavery because the alternative seemed impossible. Maybe they were smart, Chang suggested. Or maybe they were prey, Martinez replied. Dr. Kim said it herself, we're persistence hunters. We evolved to chase prey until it collapsed. We don't give up when things get difficult. We get more determined. Admiral Thompson started making notes on his tablet. If we're going to consider this path, we need to think asymmetrically. We can't fight their fleet ship to ship. We need to find their weaknesses. What kind of weaknesses? General Roberts asked. Overconfidence, Martinez said immediately. They expect easy victory. They're not prepared for sustained resistance. Their size, added Director Kim. Large organizations move slowly. They might have trouble adapting to unexpected tactics. Their psychology, Martinez continued. They're predators, but they've only hunted prey. They don't know how to fight other predators. Admiral Thompson was working on his tablet. I'm running some basic scenarios. If we could disable their command ship, their fleet might lose coordination. If we could make the fight expensive enough, they might decide we're more trouble than we're worth. Or they might decide to make an example of us, Chang warned. Martinez walked back to her chair and sat down. She looked at each person around the table. We have 18 hours before Chen has to give them our answer. I want options. I want to know if resistance is even possible. But I also want everyone to understand something. She paused and looked at the image of Earth on the wall screen. Humans have faced impossible odds before. We fought enemies with better weapons, bigger armies, superior technology. Sometimes we lost, but sometimes we won because we were too stubborn to know we were supposed to lose. The room was completely silent. Get me those military commanders, Martinez said. We have work to do. As the meeting broke up, Director Kim approached the president. Madam President, she said quietly, what if we're wrong? What if resistance really is impossible? Martinez looked at her for a long moment. Then at least our children will know we tried, she said. They'll know that when faced with slavery or death, humanity chose to fight. 24 hours later, Ambassador Chen stood once again in the massive council chamber. This time, every seat was filled. Word had spread throughout the alien government that the humans were returning with their answer, and creatures from across the galaxy had come to watch another species submit to council authority. The chamber buzzed with alien conversations. Chen could hear clicking, whistling, humming, and sounds she had no names for. Her translation device picked up fragments of different languages, but the meaning was always the same. The aliens were discussing how to divide up humanity's resources and where human workers would be most useful. Chen walked to the center platform, her steps echoing in the enormous space. She carried a single data pad containing Earth's official response. Her heart was beating fast, but her hands were steady. Sixthera's crystal form flashed with light as it called for attention. The chamber fell silent immediately. Hundreds of alien beings turned to look at the small human standing alone in the center of their great hall. Human representative, Zixathara's voice filled the chamber. You have returned as required. Present your species' acceptance of council authority. Chen looked up at the towering crystal being, then let her eyes move around the chamber. She saw the massive hegemony lords leaning forward in their seats, mandibles clicking with anticipation. The ghostly veil dancers had become more solid, their colors bright with excitement. Even the ancient stone shepherds had shifted positions, their crystal eyes focused on her. In the higher seats, she saw representatives from hundreds of other species. All of them looked the same way, defeated, tired, empty. These were the survivors of other worlds that had faced the same choice Earth now faced. They had chosen slavery over extinction, and now they watched as another species prepared to make the same choice. I have my government's response, Chen said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic system. Excellent, said one of the hegemony lords. We are prepared to receive your formal submission and begin processing your tribute payments. A veil dancer shimmered, with what might have been laughter. How quickly do you think they can organize the population transfers? Some species are more efficient than others. The human homeworld has significant mineral wealth, added a stone shepherd. We should prioritize resource extraction over population relocation. Chen listened to them discussing humanity's future, as if humans were just another commodity to be processed and distributed. Her jaw tightened, but she kept her expression calm. "Are you ready to present your answer?" Zixthera asked. Chen nodded and activated her datapad. The chamber's translation system connected to her device, ready to broadcast humanity's surrender in thousands of languages to every species present. "The United Earth government has considered the Council's generous offer," Chen began. Using the formal diplomatic language she had been taught, the aliens waited expectantly. Some leaned forward in their seats. Others made sounds of satisfaction. This was always their favorite part, the moment when another proud species admitted defeat and begged for mercy. Chen looked down at her datapad, then back up at the assembled aliens. She thought about Earth, about the blue skies and green forests of her home. She thought about her daughter, who was starting school next year. She thought about the billions of humans who would never see freedom if she spoke the words the Council expected. Then she thought about President Martinez's final message to her, delivered just hours before this meeting. 3 words that had changed everything. Make them listen. Chen cleared her throat and spoke into the translation system. No. The word echoed through the chamber in thousands of different languages and dialects. But somehow, despite all the different sounds and tones, the meaning was unmistakably clear to every being present. Silence. Complete. Absolute silence. Chen had studied alien behavior for years, but she had never seen anything like this. Creatures that had been moving, talking, breathing suddenly became as still as statues. The hegemony lord's mandibles stopped clicking mid-motion. The veil dancers became completely solid, their colors frozen in place. Even the stone shepherds, who normally moved like slow avalanches, went perfectly still. The silence stretched on for seconds, then minutes. Chen stood quietly in the center of the chamber, waiting for someone to respond. She could hear her own breathing and the quiet hum of the station's life support systems, but nothing else. Finally, Zixthara's crystal form flickered with uncertain light. Clarification required, it said, its voice somehow smaller than before. The translation systems must be malfunctioning. Please repeat your species response. Chen smiled, and somehow that small human expression seemed to fill the enormous chamber. There is no malfunction, she said clearly. Humanity's answer to your demands is no. We will not pay tribute. We will not surrender our people. We will not submit to your authority. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens began making sounds Chen had never heard before. Shrieks, roars, buzzes, and noises that hurt her ears. Some creatures stood up in their seats, while others seemed to shrink back as if they had been struck. A hegemony lord was the first to find its voice. Impossible. It clicked rapidly. No species refuses the Council. The translation must be wrong. The translation is correct, Chen said, her voice somehow carrying over the noise. Humanity rejects your offer of slavery. One of the veil dancers flickered between visible and invisible, its colors shifting wildly. You don't understand. You cannot refuse. This is not how the galaxy works. Chen looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien representatives. For the first time, she saw something other than defeat in their faces. She saw confusion, fear, and something that might have been hope. Maybe it's time the galaxy worked differently, Chen said. Zixthara's crystal body pulsed with angry red light. You are a primitive species with primitive weapons and primitive understanding. We offer you survival and you choose extinction. We choose freedom, Chen replied simply. The word freedom rippled through the chamber's translation system, and Chen saw alien representatives from subject species lean forward in their seats. Some made sounds that might have been gasps. Others touched translation devices as if they couldn't believe what they were hearing. A stone shepherd's voice rumbled like an earthquake. You have no concept of our power, human. We command fleets that darken star systems. We have weapons that can shatter worlds. Then you'll have to use them, Chen said. Because humanity will not kneel. The chamber fell silent again, but this time it was different. This wasn't the silence of shock. It was the silence of predators realizing they had encountered something unexpected. Zixthara rose higher above its platform, crystal body blazing with light. You doom your entire species with this foolishness. Every human world will burn. Every human ship will be destroyed. Your people will die screaming in the void. Chen nodded calmly. Perhaps. But they'll die free. She looked around the chamber one more time, making eye contact with as many alien representatives as possible. For 3,000 years you've ruled through fear. You've convinced species that slavery is better than extinction. You've built your empire on the idea that resistance is impossible. Her voice grew stronger, carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Humanity is here to tell you that you're wrong. Resistance is possible. Freedom is worth fighting for. And sometimes dying on your feet is better than living on your knees. The silence that followed was different from anything the council chamber had ever experienced. It was the silence of a fundamental truth being spoken in a place where such truths had been forbidden for millennia. Chen turned and began walking toward the exit. Behind her, she heard Zixathara's voice, now filled with rage. You have made your choice, human. The council fleet will come to your worlds. You will learn what happens to species that defy the natural order. Chen paused at the edge of the platform and looked back. We'll be waiting, she said. As she walked through the chamber toward the exit, something unprecedented happened. A few of the alien representatives, members of subject species that had surrendered long ago, began to stand. They didn't speak or make sounds, but they stood as Chen passed them. By the time she reached the exit, nearly a quarter of the chamber was standing. The council members remained seated, but they were no longer the only voices in the room. For the first time in 3,000 years, the word no had been spoken in the council chamber, and the galaxy would never be the same. The council fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system 3 days later. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 40,000 ships from 12 different species, stretching across space like a metal storm cloud. Admiral Zhang stood on the bridge of the ESV Defiance, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Through the viewscreen, she could see the enemy fleet approaching like a wall of death. Each alien ship was larger than anything humans had ever built. Some were the size of cities, bristling with weapons that could crack moons. Fleet status report, Zhang ordered. 215 ships ready for combat, reported her tactical officer. Defense platforms around Earth, Mars, and Luna are online. Civilian evacuation to the outer colonies is 70% complete. Zhang nodded grimly. The numbers hadn't changed since Earth made its decision. 40,000 enemy ships versus 200 human vessels. It should have been a massacre that lasted minutes. But Admiral Zhang had spent her entire career studying military history. She knew that numbers didn't always tell the whole story. Open a channel to all ships, she ordered. The communication officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. Zhang looked at the camera that would broadcast her words to every human ship in the fleet. Behind her, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, beautiful and fragile. This is Admiral Zhang to all fleet commanders. In 5 minutes, we're going to fight the largest military force in galactic history. They expect us to run or surrender. They think we'll panic when we see their numbers. She paused, watching the alien fleet continue its approach. They're wrong. We're not here to win a conventional battle. We're here to show the galaxy that humans don't quit. Every ship that fights today, every life lost, proves that freedom is worth dying for. On the tactical display, the alien fleet began to spread out, surrounding the inner solar system. It was a classic encirclement maneuver, designed to prevent any human ships from escaping. Remember your training, Zhang continued. Hit fast, hit hard, and make every shot count. If your ship is damaged beyond repair, don't retreat. Ram the biggest enemy target you can find. Make them pay for every inch of space. The first alien ships entered weapons range. They were massive crystalline vessels, beautiful and deadly, their surfaces covered with energy weapons that glowed like stars. All ships. This is Admiral Zhang. The galaxy is watching. Show them what humanity means. The Battle of Sol began with a barrage of alien fire that lit up space like a miniature sun. Energy beams struck human ships, but instead of exploding immediately, the human vessels kept fighting. Their armor was weaker, their weapons smaller, but their response was unlike anything the Council forces had expected. Human ships moved in patterns that defied standard military doctrine. Instead of maintaining formation, they scattered like a pack of wolves, attacking from multiple directions at once. When alien commanders tried to predict their movements, the humans did something completely different. The ESV Toronto, badly damaged by enemy fire, didn't retreat to safety. Instead, Captain Morrison accelerated directly toward a massive Hegemony Lord battleship, ramming into its hull at maximum speed. The explosion destroyed both ships, but it also opened a gap in the enemy formation. All units exploit the breach, Zhang ordered. Human fighters poured through the opening, targeting the alien command ships with concentrated fire. They moved like angry hornets, too small and fast for the larger alien weapons to track effectively. On the bridge of the Council flagship, Supreme Commander Veltar watched the battle with growing confusion. Its massive insectoid form clicked with agitation as reports flooded in from across the fleet. "The humans are not retreating," reported a Veil Dancer tactical officer. "They're maintaining attack formations despite critical damage." "Their ships are inferior," Veltar clicked angrily. "They should be destroyed easily." "They are being destroyed," the officer replied. "But they're taking our ships with them. The human vessel ESV Melbourne just rammed one of our heavy cruisers. Both ships are gone." Veltar's mandibles clicked faster. In 3,000 years of Council warfare, no enemy had ever used kamikaze tactics. Species that fought the Council tried to preserve their forces, hoping to negotiate surrender before being completely destroyed. "Tactical analysis," Veltar ordered. "How many human ships remain?" 163 operational vessels," came the reply. "But they're fighting like they have 10 times that number." On the human side, Admiral Zhang watched her fleet shrink on the tactical display. They were losing ships faster than they could replace them, but every loss was hurting the enemy too. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Council flagship." "They want to discuss surrender terms," Zhang almost laughed. "Tell them to go to hell, ma'am. Tell them humanity doesn't surrender. If they want Earth, they'll have to take it over our dead bodies." The message went out on all frequencies, and something unexpected happened. Ships from the Council fleet began hesitating. Some alien commanders, used to fighting species that would negotiate once losses became heavy, didn't know how to respond to an enemy that simply refused to quit. The hesitation lasted only moments, but it was enough for the human ships to regroup and launch another coordinated attack. Captain Rodriguez of the ESV Indomitable found herself facing 3 alien ships simultaneously. Her vessel was outgunned and outnumbered, but she had something the aliens didn't understand: absolutely nothing to lose. "All power to weapons," she ordered. "Target their engines. If we're going down, we're taking them with us." The Indomitable's guns fired continuously, overheating and burning out, but not before crippling 2 of the alien ships. When her weapons failed, Rodriguez ordered ramming speed. "This is for Earth," she shouted as her ship slammed into the 3rd alien vessel. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out dozens of times. Human ships fighting until their last breath, refusing to retreat, making the aliens pay dearly for every victory. The tide of battle was still against humanity, but something had changed. The alien fleet was winning, but they were suffering losses they had never expected. More importantly, they were facing an enemy that fought in ways they didn't understand. Admiral Zhang's ship, the Defiance, was surrounded by 6 alien vessels. Her hull was breached in 12 places. Half her crew was dead or wounded, and her weapons were running low on ammunition. "Admiral," her tactical officer said, his voice steady despite the blood running down his face. "We've lost main engines. We can't maneuver." Zhang looked at the tactical display. Around Earth, the battle was still raging. Human ships continued to fight despite overwhelming odds. The defense platforms were holding their ground, firing until they were destroyed. "Open a channel to the alien fleet," Zhang ordered. "Ma'am, I want to talk to their commander." The channel opened and Supreme Commander Veltar's image appeared on the screen. The alien's mandibles were clicking rapidly, and its eyes showed something Zhang had never expected to see: uncertainty. "Human commander," Veltar said, "your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are failing. Surrender now and we will spare your civilians." Zhang smiled, and the expression seemed to disturb the alien commander. "You still don't understand, do you?" she said. "We're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to show you something." "Show us what?" "That your empire is built on fear, and fear only works if people believe they have something to lose." Zhang's voice was calm despite the explosions echoing through her ship. "We've already lost everything that matters. Our freedom is already gone if we surrender, so we have nothing left to lose." Veltar's image flickered with confusion. "You are dying for nothing." "We're dying for the idea that freedom is worth dying for," Zhang replied. "And every human ship you destroy proves our point. Every life lost here shows the galaxy that resistance is possible." Before Veltar could respond, Zhang cut the channel and turned to her crew. All hands, prepare for ramming speed. Let's go out like humans. The Defiance accelerated toward the Council flagship, her remaining crew singing an old Earth song about sailors going down with their ship. But as the damaged human vessel approached, something unprecedented happened. 3 of the alien ships surrounding Veltar's flagship suddenly broke formation and moved away. The crews of those ships, composed of species that had been conquered long ago, had been listening to the human transmissions. They had heard Zhang's words about freedom being worth dying for, and for the first time in centuries, they remembered what it felt like to want something more than mere survival. The battle was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. The Council fleet was still winning, but they were no longer fighting just humans, they were fighting an idea, and ideas once planted are much harder to kill than ships. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy was a very different place. The Council had won their battle technically. Earth's orbital defenses were destroyed and 2/3 of humanity's fleet was gone. But instead of the quick, clean victory they had expected, the campaign had cost them over 3,000 ships and taken weeks to complete. More importantly, it had cost them something far more valuable than ships: their reputation for invincibility. Supreme Commander Veltar stood in his private quarters aboard the damaged flagship. Looking at reports from across the galaxy, the news was not good. 17 different species had declared independence from Council rule in the past month. Resistance movements that had been quiet for centuries were suddenly active again. A soft chime indicated someone requesting entry. Veltar's mandibles clicked with annoyance, but he granted access. Zixthara entered, its crystal form dimmer than usual. The Council speaker had not been the same since the Battle of Sol. The humans have sent another transmission, Zixthara said without preamble. I thought their communication systems were destroyed, Veltar replied. They rebuilt them. They always rebuild them. Veltar had learned to hate that particular human trait. No matter how much infrastructure the Council destroyed, humans would have it working again within days. They were like parasites, impossible to completely eliminate. What do they want now? He asked. Zixthara's light pulsed weakly. The same thing they always want. They're offering to negotiate a peace treaty. Veltar's mandibles clicked with bitter laughter. A peace treaty? They have 50 ships left. We have 47,000. Yes, Zixthara said quietly. But those 50 ships have been raiding our supply lines for months. They've destroyed 17 major installations and freed the populations of 6 mining worlds. That was the real problem. The humans refused to fight a conventional war. Instead of massing their remaining forces for a final battle, they had scattered across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. Small groups of human ships would appear without warning, strike at Council facilities, and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. Worse, they were inspiring other species to join them. The freed mining worlds had provided the humans with resources and volunteers. Former Council subjects were learning human tactics and using them against their former masters. Show me the transmission, Veltar ordered. A hologram appeared in the center of the room, showing a human woman in a military uniform. Veltar recognized her as Admiral Chen, the former ambassador's sister promoted after most of humanity's senior officers died at Sol. This is Admiral Chen of the Free Human Fleet, the recording began. We're transmitting this message to every world in Council space. Veltar noticed that Chen looked tired but not defeated. Her eyes held the same stubborn determination that had marked every human he'd encountered. The Council wants you to believe that resistance is futile, Chen continued. They want you to think that their power is absolute, that submission is the only way to survive. They're using our own communication networks against us, Zixthara observed. Every time we try to block their transmissions, they find new ways to get their message out. On the hologram, Chen was now standing in front of what looked like a space station. But Veltar recognized it as one of the mining facilities the humans had captured and converted into a base. 6 months ago, my species faced the same choice yours faces now, Chen said. Submit or die. We chose a third option, to fight for our freedom no matter the cost. The cost has been enormous, Veltar muttered. But even as he said it, he knew the cost to the Council had been higher. We won't lie to you, Chen continued. Fighting the Council is hard. We've lost many ships, many friends. But we've also learned something important. They can be beaten. The image shifted to show damaged council ships being repaired at a captured facility. Alien crew members were working alongside humans, their movements suggesting cooperation rather than forced labor. These are council soldiers who chose to join us rather than continue serving an empire built on slavery, Chen explained. They've seen what freedom looks like and they've decided it's worth fighting for. Veltar's mandibles clicked with agitation. The defection problem was getting worse every week. Entire crews were abandoning their ships to join the human resistance. Some were species that had been loyal council subjects for centuries. "We're not asking you to fight alone," Chen said. "Join us. Pool our resources, share our knowledge, coordinate our attacks. The council is strong, but they're not invincible." The transmission showed a star map with dozens of red dots scattered across council space. Each dot represented a world in rebellion or under attack by resistance forces. "Look around the galaxy," Chen said. "The council is fighting on hundreds of fronts simultaneously. Their forces are spread thin, their supply lines are vulnerable, and their subjects are losing faith in their power." Zixthera moved closer to the hologram. "She's right. We're losing control of entire sectors. Every victory costs us more ships than we can afford to lose." The image returned to Chen's face. She was smiling now, and somehow that human expression was more frightening than any weapon. To the council, "If you're listening to this," she said, looking directly into the camera, "we want you to know something. You could have ruled us. You could have taken our resources and our people. All you had to do was negotiate instead of demanding tribute." "Negotiate?" Veltar clicked. "We don't negotiate with primitives. But you chose to see us as primitives instead of potential partners," Chen continued as if she could hear his objection. "You chose fear over diplomacy, force over cooperation. Now you're learning why that was a mistake." The transmission paused and Chen's expression became serious. "Here's our offer, Council. Stop your attacks on human worlds and free populations. Recognize the independence of all species that choose freedom over servitude. In return, we'll help you transition from an empire to a confederation, a voluntary association of species working together instead of a hierarchy of masters and slaves." Veltar made a sound of disgust. "Ridiculous. The Council has ruled for 3 millennia. Your alternative," Chen said, "is to continue fighting a war you can't win. We'll never stop resisting. We'll never surrender. And every day you spend fighting us is another day for the idea of freedom to spread throughout your empire." The hologram showed images from across the galaxy. Council ships under attack, freed populations celebrating, former subjects joining resistance movements. The choice is yours, Council. You can be part of a free galaxy, or you can spend the next 1,000 years trying to hold together an empire that's falling apart around you. The transmission ended, and Veltar stood in silence for several minutes. "What are you thinking?" Zixthera asked finally. Veltar looked at the reports scattered across his desk. Every one of them contained bad news. Another rebellion, another defeat, another group of ships defecting to the human cause. "I'm thinking that these humans are even more dangerous than we realized," he said quietly. "They're not just fighting us. They're changing the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. The other council members are demanding a final assault on the remaining human worlds," Zixthera said. "They want to make an example that will discourage other rebellions." Veltar considered this. "And how many ships do they think will lose in this final assault?" Zixthera's light dimmed further. "Conservative estimates suggest 20 to 30,000 casualties. To destroy 50 human ships? The humans won't fight conventionally. They'll make us pay for every world, every city, every building. And while we're focused on them, the other rebellions will grow stronger." Veltar walked to the window and looked out at space. In the distance, he could see the lights of ships, council vessels heading out to fight yet another rebellion somewhere else in the galaxy. "How many species are now in open revolt?" he asked. 43 confirmed, Zixthera replied, with more declaring independence every week. Veltar's mandibles clicked slowly. "And how many of them learned their tactics from the humans?" "All of them." The room fell silent again. Outside, more ships were departing, heading to battles that would cost lives and resources the Council could no longer afford to lose. Finally, Veltar made a decision that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he said. "Sir? You heard me. Contact Admiral Chen. Tell her the Council is ready to discuss her proposal." Zixthera's crystal form flickered with surprise. The other council members will never agree to this. Then maybe it's time for the council to learn the same lesson the humans taught the rest of the galaxy, Veltar replied. Sometimes the old ways don't work anymore. As he prepared to make the most important decision in galactic history, Veltar found himself thinking about something Admiral Chen had said in her transmission. The humans had chosen a third option when faced with submission or death. They had chosen to fight for freedom. Now faced with the collapse of his empire or negotiation with former enemies, Veltar was about to make the same choice. The age of absolute council rule was ending. What came next would depend on whether both sides could learn to see former enemies as potential allies. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never again assume that resistance was impossible.